Good evening. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And Mr. President of the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Prime Minister, Ministers and Members of Parliament, Mr. Chairman of the SEV, and ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you. It's a great honor to stand in front of this beautiful auditorium. And our company, Fairfax, has been in business for 31 years. And we have developed our company over that long, and I've been the chairman of that company. And over some time, they call you boss, because I've been there for so long. And as I look here, I find there are many bosses. There's all sorts of leaders, bosses. So it reminds me of the story of this gentleman who went to buy a parrot. And he went to a pet store to buy a parrot. And the pet store owner said, there's 3 parrots. And he said, how much does that cost? He said that would cost 500 euro. 500 euro for a parrot? Why is that so expensive? So he said, that parrot knows how to play the computer. So that's why it costs $500. I said, how about the second parrot? The second parrot, he says, costs $1,000. $1,000. I said, why would you pay $1,000 for a parrot? He said, this one not only can play the computer, it can design a computer system. So it's very, very good. So then he says, I don't want to ask you, but how about that third parrot? And he says, the third parrot is $2,000. And so he's afraid to ask. He says, what does that third parrot do? So the owner says, to be quite honest, I don't know what he does, but the other 2 call him boss. Thank you again, as I said, thank you very much for inviting me here. I love Greece. We've loved the Greek people. We came here about 2 years ago I got 50 of our management team, board of directors, and with spouses, so 100 people came to Costa Navarino, and we spent most of a week there, and it was wonderful. We experienced Greek hospitality, and all of our people had a wonderful time. And so I must tell you, we are very, very fortunate to have done that. And this year, in the summer, in August, I'm going to be coming with my family, my wife, my children, 3 children, and 5 grandchildren to one of the islands that you have, one of the Greek islands. We've invested quite a bit of money. I thought we'd have a little holiday at the same time. But I wanted to add to Mr. Tsipras's comment, the Prime Minister, 110th anniversary. It's a huge milestone and shows what a wonderful history Greek business has. But I must tell you, what Greece has gone through in the last 8 years, you know this, but I want to highlight it for you. Your GDP has fallen 27% from the peak in 2008, 8 years ago, worse than the Great Depression in the United States, worse than the Great Depression in the 1930s, and the Asian crisis in 1997, what you'll have gone through. Unemployment went right up to 27.5%. It's coming down, but still about almost 24%. But I'm just going to rattle some numbers. It's quite amazing. Your residential buildings, construction of houses, is down 86% from 2010, 96% from the peak in 2005. Automobile sales are down 80%. Capital spending has fallen 67% and is now only 10% of GDP. It used to be 27%. Foreign direct investment is minimal. In fact, last year it was a little negative. 10-year interest rates, went right up to 36% in 2012. Now they're about 6%. And the Greek stock market from the high has dropped about 90%. So these are all numbers that suggest that Greece has gone through a depression, a very strong depression. And all of you in business must be congratulated that you survived that, and you've done well. In China, China has characters, and they have a character for crisis. And the character for crisis is the same as the character for opportunity. One character shows crisis, and it also shows opportunity. And I think that's what I was going to tell you, that Greece has gone through a really tough time, bottomed out, and it's going to be looking good. Our company has gone through these time periods ourselves, and I tell our shareholders that I tell them about this story about a family that had twin boys. They looked alike, twins, but one was an optimist and one was a pessimist. Same family, but one was optimist, one was pessimist. So the father said, let me see what will happen. He bought, on both twins' birthdays, he bought a lot of presents for one twin, the pessimist. He bought presents, he gave him all sorts of presents, and then he went that night to the pessimist twins' room. And the pessimist boy was crying. He said, why are you crying? The father said, because my friends will be jealous. I'll have to read all these instructions before I can do anything. I'll constantly need batteries, and my toys will eventually get broken, the pessimist twin said. Father went to the optimist twin. Same twin went to his room. Father found him, this optimist twin, dancing for joy, laughing. And he said, why are you so happy? So the optimist twin said, because the father had put a lot of manure in his room, put a lot of manure, and it was smelling. Optimist twin said, there must be a pony someplace. So I'm an optimist, and I think Greece has bottomed out, and I think Greece is going to be doing well, and I want to spend a few minutes telling you that. Why did we invest in Greece? Mr. Tsipras, the Prime Minister, has mentioned that to you, part of the EU, wonderful entrepreneurial people. And I just thought I'd give you a sense for where we've put our money. We bought one of your largest life insurance property casualty companies called Eurolife, run by Alex Sarioyu, and fantastic track record. We own 80% of it. And we bought that. It's one of the best companies. We invest all over the world. It's one of the best companies, I think, in the world. We bought 18% of Eurobank. It's run by Fokion Karavias, Nick Karamouzis as chairman, Fokion as CEO. We would rank them any CEOs in the world at that combination. We have 40% of a company called Grevalier, which is a real estate company run by a gentleman by the name of George Chrysakos. Tremendous operator. You can take him to the United States and he'd do well. That's the kind of person that you have. And we have gone all over the place. We are an investor in Evangelos Mytilinos company, Mytilinos, and his track record is outstanding. I spent some time with him this trip. And finally, we have 100% of a company called Practica, home improvement where you spend time. This company's sales have dropped 50% from the high. And Yannis Salal-Mazades, as the leader of this company, has never lost money in the last 15 years. Never lost money. And it's quite an outstanding track record that they've had. And so our experience in business here in Greece is you've got, as the Prime Minister said, tremendous talent, very, very good talent, and very good human resources, really well educated in Greece, in the United Kingdom, in the United States, great infrastructure, outstanding history and culture. Not that I have to tell you this, but all you have to do is look at the Acropolis, built 2,500 years ago, and built as a monument to the greatness of Athens that you can take an inspiration from. And so when I look at Greece, I say, what do you have to do to go forward? And my sense for the government, for the Prime Minister, is economic freedom. We invest all over the world, and the countries that do well have economic freedom. Democracy, but economic freedom. I mean business-friendly policies where entrepreneurs can create business and employment from inside Greece and outside. Business and entrepreneurs create jobs. Governments are needed for infrastructure, regulations, universities and schools, very important for education, but business creates jobs. That's what I've seen all over the world. Business creates jobs. And that'll happen here also. I thought I'd make it personal and illustrate my own case, my story. I immigrated to Canada about 45 years ago, and my story is not very unique. There's a ton of people in the United States and Canada have my story. I immigrated at the age of 22 with no money in my pocket, $8 to be exact. It was a lot of money at the time. Canada welcomed me warmly, as it does to immigrants from all over the world. Lots of Greek immigrants in Canada. Wonderful country, and I'm very blessed to live there. All my working life is in Canada, 45 years. And Canada provided me with unlimited opportunity. I worked for a life insurance company for 9 years before taking control of a small insurance company, 1985, 31 and a half years ago. I didn't have any money, as I said, but people backed us. In a couple of years, we changed the name of our company after a couple of years to Fair, Friendly Acquisition. Fair, Friendly Acquisition AX Fairfax. That's where we got the name from. One of my secretaries came up with the name. Tried the board of directors, it didn't work. Secretary came out with the name. We had revenues when we began of 10 million. 31 years later, we have revenues of 10 billion. Investment portfolios of 24 million. We have 30 billion today. Our capital in the company was 10 million. It's 10 billion today, and our stock price was 3.25, and it's now 650. We've compounded the stock price at about 20% a year for 31 years. There's only about 10 companies among the big companies in the United States that have done that. We had less than 50 employees. We have 22,000 employees in our insurance business, and we control restaurants in Canada, and we have 50,000 employees. So why? I was fortunate. I don't consider myself any smarter, brighter, whatever. I was fortunate to go to a country which is business friendly, which allowed you to do these things. Our own company, if I can take 2 minutes, we've got a wonderful culture. Our culture is based upon providing outstanding service to our customers, looking after the people who provide that service, making a return, being profitable, and then putting money back into the community we did business. So when we began, the whole company was worth $2 million. In the last few years, we've invested $15 to $20 million each year in the communities we do business. So we've prospered mightily, and I just wanted to highlight 2 or 3 guiding principles that we have followed all these years, and it might be useful for you. Everything we've done is long-term. We focused on the long term. You build a business over time. You don't build it over 3 months, 6 months, a year. You build it over time. And that's what we've done. We have an odd principle. We say we work very hard, but we don't want to work at the expense of our families. We put families right up at the top. And we have believed that teams work really well. So we're very team-oriented, and we are fearful of people who have big egos and are arrogant. So President Ronald Reagan made this statement years ago that anything in the world is possible, anything in the world is possible, if you don't care who gets the credit. If you don't care if it's your idea or my idea, as long as it's good for the company, you should do it. And we try to follow that. So when you do these policies and you take a long-term view, our view is business can be a calling. Like doctors have a calling, business can be a calling because you provide so many essential services to a community. If you can look after the needs of your customers, employees, communities which you operate, finally make a return for your shareholders. I wanted to share with you my experience in Ireland, very similar to Greece. It went through a very tough time. 2011, the Irish economy bottomed out. It was down 15%, half of what happened in Greece. Unemployment went to 14%. 10-year rates, government rates went to 14%, and the country of Ireland could not borrow any money. No one would lend Ireland any money. Today, the rates are less than 1% for 10 years, 0.85%. I went back and I looked at what the EU, IMF, and the Irish Department of Finance said at the time. 2012, 2013, they're looking in the future. They predicted the economy would go 1 to 2.5% next few years. Here's what happened in Ireland. 2014, 4.8%. 2015, 7.8%, almost 8%. And 2016, last year, 5.2%. All my point is these are very good people, they're conservative, but they can't predict what will happen when you have come down significantly and you're on the rise. So what can Greece do now at this point? You know, I wanted to say we came to Greece because of Mr. Samaras in 2013. I want to thank him for being very hospitable, inviting us to Greece. But the present government, led by the Prime Minister, Mr. Tsipras, has done all that the Troika wanted it to do. It was tough for the Prime Minister to do this, but he has done it. I want to congratulate him and the Finance Minister for completing a very difficult task and not what I am sure he wanted to do. But he's done it, and it's behind us. Now, as you know, and he knows, it's important to complete the second program review as quickly as possible. Because what Greece needs and what Ireland had is take out the uncertainty. You have to take out the uncertainty. I would recommend, in my experience, the government has business-friendly policies. Friendly policies for business to provide employment. In fact, I would suggest to the government, to the Prime Minister, have Greece be the best place to do business, one of the best places in the world to do business. You've got such wonderful weather, you've got terrific people. No reason you can't be among the best places to do business. Of course, you have to broaden the tax base, and I think the Prime Minister, Finance Minister are already doing that, collect taxes. Lots have already been done, as he talked about, in terms of credit cards and that type of thing for payments, to getting away from a cash economy. Greek bonds should be a part of the QE now. The government, Mr. Tsipras, the Prime Minister is going to try, with the Finance Minister, going to try that. But that's something that should happen. And as he said, the capital controls should be removed. Cyprus had them for 2 years. They removed it. Money came in. Greece is now in June, 2 years for capital controls. Remove it. Money will come in. Deposits will come in. They won't go out. and you have to do that. Finally, Greece today does not have access to the bond market. That's why you're going to the EU for $7 billion, and you have to get it from there. The United States of America, the biggest, largest country in the world, will go bankrupt if it didn't have access to the bond market. So if it had $4 billion due or $10 billion due, a bond matures, and if they couldn't access and refinance it, they wouldn't be able to survive. No country can survive. And that's what Greece is. But I'm suggesting to you, if you do these things, you'll get access to the bond market, you'll get control of your destiny again. And I think, and I'm an optimist, and I think all of these things will happen in Greece. And we look back, you went through a really, really tough period, but that'll be behind you. So let me just end by quoting the French Rothschilds. The French Rothschilds are very smart, and they had a saying in French. My French is not very good, but here's what the saying goes: Achetez au canyon, vendez au clarion. In English, it goes like this: buy when you hear the sound of cannon, sell when you hear the sound of trumpets. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, for Greece, I hear the sound of cannon. So thank you again for inviting me to speak in front of you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.